Welcome back, everybody. Obviously, this was a pretty big week for many of you. You got your data. I think all but two people now have their data sets as I'm recording this, and I'm hoping that the other two individuals will get me that information I need so I can send it back to them soon. But my expectation is since this video is for next week, you're all going to have had your data sets, all hopefully done your analyses from those data sets, which is big. And that leads us to the next big thing for this class, and that's sort of interpreting the results that you have. Specifically, what you're going to be doing in this particular assignment is tying what it was you found from the previous one into the context of the big picture that you were planning on looking at. We've come a long way in this class, if you think about it. Had an idea that sort of stemmed from a lit review that we were looking at. Then it led us to trying to figure out what types of things we ourselves could study, usually causing many of us to go back to that lit review and figuring out what was out there. In the last class, we really spent time defining our variables so you could get the information and do some pretty basic data analyses of the information that you have. Well, now that you've done that, you found those T statistics or F statistics or correlation coefficients, what I want us to be able to do is interpret that information. And this is a big step, honestly, for a lot of people when they're writing their papers. In fact, it's a step that unfortunately many people miss or do incorrectly, and that leads to a catastrophe with papers because there will be people who have very good data, very useful stuff, because they don't have the right ways to interpret the information. Either they just don't have the knowledge or they're using the wrong tools. You might sometimes come to results that don't actually align with what the data is telling them. My hope is that you are watching this video shortly after you've gotten some feedback on the results that you posted as to whether or not it makes sense and it aligns with what we're looking for. And that allows us to now be able to start to again tie what it was we found with those results to the material that's out there. Now, as a forewarning, a lot of the data that you got this semester could have absolutely nothing substantial in it. It was made up data. I tried to kind of lean things towards the direction of there being significance in a number of studies, but it's like in the real world, when you conduct studies, there are definitely a number of you that got data that probably flops and will not necessarily give you significance. It's not a horrible thing, right? That happens, and in fact, it can easily happen in a senior thesis. You can still use that project, that data, for your paper. Null results are perfectly fine for this particular assignment. But what we want you to do in this assignment, regardless of whether or not you found something amazing or maybe something a little disappointing, is talk about how what you found compares to other similar research and sort of fits into the grand scheme of those lit reviews that you did. Many of you, when doing this, probably have a good understanding of the results you have a good understanding of what it implies, and probably have enough information from your resources to quickly scurry through this and tie what you found to the context of the surrounding information. However, I also know some of you have sort of meandered with your topics throughout the semester. You started in one place, decided to revisit something else, haven't necessarily got the required information from related sources to quickly be able to tie what you found to the context of different stuff. If you're at that place where you pivoted or maybe just didn't get enough information to really tie what you're finding now to the context of the situation, you might have some homework ahead of you this week. Because what you need to do in this particular assignment after reporting results is find a way to tie those results again to the articles that you will need to use, not just in this assignment, but for your final paper. You're probably going to need more than what you're going to provide here in this assignment when you get to the final paper. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But for this particular assignment, I do need you to be able to pull in research articles that you've been using to come up with your ideas or to fine tune the way you were looking at something and link it to those statistically significant or insignificant results that you found. So please, as you're going through your results, not only kind of make sense of what the conclusions are and write this in the assignment, but then find a way to link it up to that material with proper citations, proper reference pages at the end, so I can understand sort of where your train of logic is. If everything makes sense, quickly, I'll assign you 15 points for this when it comes up due next Friday. And we can move on to the whole paper writing process. What you write and submit here doesn't make sense, there's the potential that we might have some talks ahead of us where we try to dissect what's going on. And even if you maybe can't make all the points back up, we at least can get you to a point where you're ready to transition to the paper writing process. Because as I said, one of the monumental failures that students sometimes encounter in these projects isn't trying to kind of get things done in a certain time, but it's finding good data and then not knowing how to interpret it so they come to conclusions that are inaccurate. So I'm going to make sure that we try to avoid that by looking at your data, looking at the analyses you did, and hopefully making sure that everybody's at the right point. But to get things moving, to get you to a point where you can get full credit for this and really be able to transition to writing the paper by talking about design and setup, I want you to put your best foot forward for this particular assignment. And if you have questions, please let me know. Like I said in the previous video, I'm not going to be able to do the data analysis for you. That's not the point of this. You need to be able to do this on your own. I can tell you if you're on the right track when you come up with something. We can definitely talk about where maybe your logic is wrong, but I cannot, if you come to me and say, here's my data, what can I do with it? Tell you exactly what to do. That's something that you should have been able to understand in previous classes, and you need to be able to understand in the next class when you get to that senior thesis. So if we're at a point, a juncture where this just completely doesn't make sense and you have no idea what you're doing, and you find yourself completely lost, might be time to pause and think about, do I need to retake a class? Do I need to rethink this? What books do I need to read? I essentially need to maybe stay in the class, but really hunker down and figure out the stuff that I was supposed to learn in my previous classes. Because this is, as I said, a pretty monumental moment for us, being able to not only do a data analysis, but understand it, something that's essential for our research. So please give yourself enough time to do this. Make sure you've got the skills that are required. And if not, start talking about how you can maybe acquire some of those skills. Hopefully, I can get everybody in the class to that next place where we'll be in the following week when we start to organize and design these papers that we're going to be writing on the topics that we're exploring this semester. For today, I think we've covered all the key elements. Again, if you have any questions, send me an email. Otherwise, I wish you all the best of luck with this particular part of the class. And I hope to see really great work from all of you when I look at things next week. Now, take care and we'll see you soon.